my fellow Earthlings. Welcome to this special episode today with Father Paul. He's a priest who relocated from the US to Africa to work here with refugees. I had the great opportunity to ask him about his life, his work, and his experience with relationships and healing. It was an absolute pleasure to speak with him and to get to know him. I hope you think the same. If you like content like this, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. And share this video with your friends to help others like you to find us. So, enjoy! So, today I'm here in the west of Tanzania, and a few days ago I've met Paul here, who came many years ago, and it was a very interesting conversation. So I asked if you could have a short interview to share with you. So please introduce yourself a little bit. Tell me how you ended up here.
My name is Paul. The family name is Flamm, which is, I believe it's of German origin. I've been here in Tanzania now for about 16, 17 years, something like that. I'm a priest with a Catholic missionary congregations called the Congregation of the Holy Spirit. We go by Spiritans for short. And I was sent here to work with refugees. We work with refugees from Congo and Burundi. In the past, we've also worked with refugees from Rwanda. In many ways, it's like working in any parish that you would find. You have your normal liturgies and pastoral visits to the sick, things like that. But then there's things that are kind of unique also to working with refugees. So it's a work that I love. Obviously, I'm still here after these years, and so I'm happy to be here doing the work that I'm doing. So, and I welcome you. On your visit here to Tanzania, to Kigoma, and I hope you have a good stay and a nice visit.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful place. I've seen a few things. I was there. Yeah, experienced a lot of the environment here. I can understand why you decided to stay here.
Yeah, it's a very nice environment. The people are wonderful. So,
yeah, exactly. So the first question from me to you would be, why are religious beliefs important to you?
It was a big change that came about in my life. I would say that in my 20s, up to my 20s, late 20s, I lived, I could say, a typical life. I was out in California for about 5 years, enjoyed the life there. You know, it was almost like being on vacation all the time, and a lot of parties and nice weather, and going to the beach, all the things that I really enjoy. And on a certain level, I was happy with that. I enjoyed it. But on another level, I would say a deeper level, I felt like there was something wrong, that there was something missing. There had to be something better. And that's when I really started to question myself, what's wrong, what's missing, why do you feel this way? And it just came to me one day. I was on my way to work, and I said, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And that was the first time in my life, this was in my late 20s, around 30 years old. It's the first time in my life I ever thought, well, there's something that I might be called to do, that I should be doing. And so at that time, my faith was becoming more and more important to me. And so I thought I'd like to do some volunteer work in keeping with my faith. And I had an interest in traveling overseas. So I looked around to see, was there any groups that were sending people overseas, and I ended up with the Lay Mission Helpers. It's a group in the diocese formed by the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, and I ended up going to Cameroon for 3 years, teaching secondary school, mathematics. It was my first time overseas. It was my first time experiencing another culture, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful, life-changing experience. So when I came back, was trying to think. Now I knew I couldn't go back to what I was doing in the past, but I wasn't sure. I didn't yet know what I wanted to do in the future. I knew I wanted to come back to Africa. That was one thing I knew, and so I started to think, well, maybe working for a development agency or the United Nations, something like that. But then, in the background was because my faith was becoming more important to me, and I wanted that whatever I would do would be an expression of my faith. And so that's when I started thinking about religious life. So I started looking around, and I talked to a number of different congregations. One of them was the Congregation of the Holy Spirit, Spiritans. That's the group that I'm with now. And I really liked what I read about them. I really liked what I read about the founder and the work that we do, the ministry that we do. So I ended up joining them. And along the way, during the years of preparation, one of my formation directors asked me, well, what are you interested in doing? And I told him, I really like to work with the poor and the people who are struggling in their lives. And I was thinking of disaster relief, famine assistance, something like that. And he asked me, have you ever thought about working with refugees? I said, oh, yeah, well, that might be interesting. So we followed that line of thought, and I ended up coming, for my pastoral experience, working with refugees for about 6 months. They were refugees from Rwanda, and that really got me interested. I wanted to come back, and I was interested in that ministry. So when I finished my studies, I came back to Tanzania, but now I was working with refugees from Burundi. And it was just a life-changing experience. The people were wonderful. The work that we were doing with them, the ministry that we were doing with them was, I found, very engaging and very fulfilling. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed being with them. And yeah, I'm here now. It's 16 years, as I said, in Tanzania, 16, 17 years. And most of the time has been working with refugees. And that was kind of an outgrowth of my faith. That was really important to me, that what I do should have some expression in my faith. And as a priest, of course, well, that's a big part of my life. It's a big part of my life, the prayer life, the ministry. And again, I've found it very fulfilling, the ministry with refugees and the prayer life, having some sort of guidance from the scriptures, for example, has been very helpful in my life.
Yeah, sure. So it's a really interesting life journey, and you can somehow say in the moment where you started looking for fulfilling your purpose, you were placed to this position. You were guided to be here to fulfill your purpose. So it's really like you can really see how the whole development went from starting to look for deeper meaning to ending up in a situation where you really now feel like you're fulfilling it and you feel like you're in the right place.
No, that's true.
That's really wonderful. So now let's come to the second question. What exactly motivates you to become a better person?
Well, I think all of us are a mix of, you could say, good and bad, things that develop good relationships, and there are other things that detract from your relationships. And it's important to become aware of the areas where you need to change. I think that's part of your development as a person, your psychological growth, that you become more aware of yourself and the things that need to change in your life to become a better person. And as you become a better person, I think you develop better relationships with people. You understand better how to build relationships, to form long-lasting relationships, and then to protect those relationships. Because there's always differences of opinion that come up. There's problems that arise in relationships. And so to learn how to resolve those differences, resolve those the problems that arise in a way that protects the relationship is very important. And for me, that's becoming a better person.
Yeah, So in the end, it's the experience of, let's say, happiness and love that you experience if you have healthy relationships, and you learn that work on yourself, being a better person, having less conflicts, less struggle in life, increases this experience of like healthy, loving relationships around you instead of conflicts and struggle.
Yeah, I think all of us have a fundamental desire to have good, close relationships, intimate relationships that you can share and enjoy the presence of other people. And it's very important in life. And to develop those relationships and to protect those relationships is something that's really important to me.
Yeah, definitely, it is. It's also a drive, as you said, for most of the people. But many people are not aware of it. Like many people try to find a solution in the outside and not like working on themselves. So it's a very good example.
Yeah, I think a change in your life begins with self-awareness.
Yeah.
And before you can try to change someone else, or you have to, if there's problems, for example, you have to be aware of how you yourself are contributing to the problem. And then when you do that, and when the person that you have the relationship with sees that, then it opens the door for changes on their part also. So together you can build better relationships.
Yeah, exactly what I'm also convinced of. It's very nice. Yeah. So my next question would be: what advice would you give from your cultural and religious background in relation to healthy relationships?
Well, I've been working overseas now, here in Tanzania. I've worked in a couple other countries, Cameroon for 3 years. I was in Central Africa, I was in Burundi. And so I have kind of a mix, of my own culture. I'm from the United States, born and raised in the United States in Chicago. But now I have this mix of having lived in other cultures. So I would say, to talk about what helps, what advice would I give from, I draw from that experience, from my own culture as someone from the United States, but also from the experience of living in other cultures. I think one of the things that I grew up with in our own culture is kind of an openness, and at least an idealistic appreciation of the rights and the dignity of other people. And that's also something that's very fundamental to my religious beliefs. You respect the rights and the dignity of every person, regardless of origin or any kind of other things that we might discriminate. Regardless of the differences that we have, everyone shares the same common dignity. I think that's an ideal in our own culture in the United States. We don't always live up to that, of course, but it's there as an ideal, and of course in my faith, that's a fundamental principle. Respect the dignity of everybody. Who if you look in the Bible, the very first book of the Bible says we were created in the image and likeness of God. And that was written thousands of years ago. There's a truth, really a powerful insight. So I think that's important, and that plays out in your daily interactions. When you move from one culture to another, of course you see a lot of differences, and you learn that there's more than one way to do things, and the way that we learn growing up in our own culture is not necessarily the best way. Other people have different ways to do the same thing, to build relationships, and you learn things. I would say one of the things that has struck me in my own experience living in another culture is the difference between the individual, focus on the individual, the rights, and the focus on the social relationships. And we become, in our own culture in the United States, I think we've become very individualistic, and that's where we look for our fulfillment. How do I better myself personally, whether it be in terms of work or in terms of psychological development, whatever. You look to yourself as an individual. And but in the African culture, for example, there's much more of a focus on social relationships, and how do you develop, how do you protect those social relationships. And I think in our own culture in the United States, we've kind of drawn back, we turned inwards. I remember as kids, we would be out on the street with our neighbors playing all different games, summer, winter. We were always outside. The parents were sitting on the front porch. We knew who our neighbors were, and we did a lot of things together. And it was really we built a strong social relationship in our neighborhood, which was important. But now, when you drive through the neighborhoods, at least where I'm from in Chicago, you don't see so many kids out on the street. You don't see them out playing, and it's probably because they're either at some activity in school or wherever, which is good also. But a lot of times they're in their room working on the computer, or they're working on the internet, or they're on the phone talking with somebody who's miles away. And they forget the people who are right there next to them, building relationships with the people right there next to them. And it's in the African culture, it's much more socially oriented. When you get together, you sit and you talk and you share ideas, and it's just for me, it gave me an awareness of something we've lost in our own culture. And you see it in things like, if you go to visit somebody and it's around the time of the meal, in our own culture, we say, no, they say, well, come and join us. You say, no, I'm really not hungry. Even if you're starving, you say, I'm not hungry, because you weren't invited. Yeah. But in the African culture, you come and there's always enough food for one more person, and so you're automatically invited to sit at a table and have something to eat. And if it's they share whatever the little is there, and it's very nice. Same thing, if you to visit somebody, we've gotten to the point where in our own culture, unless it's a really close friend, it's kind of assumed you're going to stay in a hotel. Yeah. And then you come and you have, a get together maybe for a meal, or you go out to a restaurant, something like that. But there's a fixed time and a place where you get together, and then you'll go back to your own hotel room, whatever. Whereas here, it's still very much open. Where when you come to visit, you stay with the person that you're visiting, and you have the meals together with the person that you're visiting, and so it's very sociable, very welcoming, very welcoming.
If you live in the neighborhood, you can just come along. Like in Germany, it's so typical that if you want to visit someone, you first need to agree maybe 2 or 3 days. And here you can just just go there, you knock at the door, if it's really not, if no one is home, and you leave again. But you just visit people, you just talk to them, and you just find the time to communicate. Whereas, in our home, it's so much more difficult to really agree something. There's no time, and then if you just would be spontaneous, most people are quite stressed about it.
When I was in Cameroon, that was my first experience living overseas in an African country, and one of the words that struck me most was welcome.
Yes, welcome. Also here,
and they meant it. Yeah. Here in Tanzania, welcome is karibu, and that's they mean it. Whether you're welcome to sit and talk and join in the meal and whatever's going on. So I found that's something that's really worthwhile. So my advice would be, to be open, to see the good things that other cultures have to offer, while at the same time appreciating the goodness in your own culture. And you kind of put the two together. You grow in different aspects. You learn different things from wherever you go.
Yeah, that's very good advice, I would say. Thank you. Well, the next question I have for you would be, what are cultural or religious teachings that guide you on healing wounds?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it goes with what I've already said about in resolving difficulties. The first place you look is in your own. So how do you improve your relationship with others? You begin to look at yourself, and I think that's especially it's an outgrowth of my religious beliefs. You kind of look at your life and you think, well, where have I gone wrong? What are the things I've done to harm other people or to make to cause problems for other people, and how do I resolve that? And whenever there's difficulties that arise, the first step is to look at yourself and see, how am I contributing to this? And that requires some introspection. And what really helps me in my faith is that if there's something that happens that upsets me, if there's a difference of opinion, an argument, whatever, then I take it to prayer. And when I say prayer, I mean it's more of a conversational prayer where I'm presenting the problem in all of its detail and what happened and how did I. The question would be, how did I myself contribute to it? Is there something that I did that provoked a negative response from somebody else, from the other person? And is there something that I need to change? Before I go and say, well, you did this and you made me angry. And no, first you start with yourself. So I think that's an outgrowth of my faith and prayer. And when I say prayer, I mean deep introspective prayer, where you're really kind of taking a look at what's going on inside and where you might have gone wrong here or there. And then, once you become aware of that, of course, the next thing is, I need to change. It's again, that thought of becoming a better person, and that becoming a better person goes better. It helps to resolve differences and opinions, and that mutual willingness to look at each other and how each one might be contributing to the difficulty at hand or the misunderstanding at hand. That mutual experience builds strong relationships, strong, lasting relationships where you really develop a close, loving friendship.
Yeah, so it would basically really be the introspection, like a lot of our audience is also meditating, and I've learned also in our last stay in Abbey, where I've been for a while, that every day they also had half an hour of meditation, which is kind of, I think it's so similar between the prayer, when it's in the end that you just trust your inner knowledge that responses will come as soon as you really ask the right questions and go into the introspection and then accept the answers that come.
For me, the putting the introspection in the light of faith, and there's of course guidelines that you're given, a way of living, respecting and appreciating the other person, and becoming aware of where you've kind of crossed the line, and being sorry for that, and that for me is that's a religious response. That following the guidelines, the teaching. For me, the teaching of Jesus is very important, that we read in the Bible, and drawing from that, how does that guide us in our daily lives, and especially when problems arise. Now, how should I have responded? How would I have responded in keeping with my faith? And if I didn't respond that way, then to be aware that I need to ask for forgiveness. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. And then the course of forgiveness, works both ways. If someone comes and asks for forgiveness, is aware of having somehow offended you, and comes and asks for forgiveness, it's letting go of the anger or the pride or whatever that was hurt, and saying, okay, yeah, I forgive you, and that really, the forgiveness is really important. As opposed to writing somebody off and saying, no, I never want to speak to this person again, I never want to see this person again. And it's important in the closest relationships you have, because the people you offend most are the people that you're with every day. And that's in family.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you're married, it's between husband and wife, it's between parents and children. We're living in a community like ourselves, we live in a religious community. Those are the people, your neighbors, those are the people you're with every day. And those are the people where you have the most opportunity to offend each other. And so that's where you most need that awareness, self-awareness of when you've made a mistake and you've offended somebody, and that humility, let's say, to ask for forgiveness and to be willing to give. Be willing to give forgiveness.
Yeah, exactly. Forgiveness, letting go. I think that animals also agree with you. You can hear it in the background. But yeah, so it's really interesting, because I also learned that the closest relationship we have, they kind of trigger our wounds, they touch us exactly where we have wounds, and we also need to be aware of that this happens because of our wounds and not because of the other one being a bad person. And just, yeah, exactly, the letting go, the forgiveness is a really essential part of healing it.
In the closest relationships, you know the other person so well, you know all of their faults and failings, and that can become a weapon that you use to hurt the person. In an argument, well, you did this, or you're this way, or that. And that doesn't really resolve the problem. It just, it makes the problem worse. So there has to be a certain acceptance of the other person's faults and failings, with the awareness that each one of us is in the same boat, the same condition.
Especially if you understand that 95% of our communication happens subconscious. So 5% is really verbal communication we're aware of. 95% is, for example, if I feel stressed because of a fear of a wound, then you would respond to it with physical mimics, the way you talk, and then again there's an interaction happening based on this. So that's always exactly the body language, the tension. People are very, very sensitive to this, and that's where a lot of communication happens. That causes conflict, and as long as you are aware of it and you react the way you just explained it, it's perfect way to do it. So, yeah, very nice teaching. So now coming to the end of the interview, what would be the final thought, the final summary that you would give us?
Yeah, it's what I was saying, that this I focus on that question of why do you want to be a better person, become a better person, and it's developing better relationships with others, which is rooted in becoming more aware of yourself, what your faults and failings are, coming to an acceptance of yourself, accepting the differences that arise in your relationships, and accepting the faults and failings in the other person, especially somebody who you really want to protect that relationship, and recognize that growing personally and growing in relationships is not something that takes place overnight. It's a lifelong process, and we never, from my perspective, we never get to the point where we're satisfied with where we are, where we want to be. There's always room to grow, and I think that continuing growth, becoming a better person, developing better relationships, helps you to be more at peace with yourself. Helps you to be more at peace in your relationships with others. And as a religious person whose faith is very important, I would say it also helps to be at peace with God and where we're going in life.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful thought. So, Thank you so much for the interview.
You're
It was
welcome.
very, very interesting.
I appreciate your taking the interest and offering the time to sit together and
Yeah,
share
thank you.
this
Thank you.
stuff. So,
Yes, and I hope we see you again and you
okay.
continue this precious work that you're doing here.
Now I wish you a nice stay here in Tanzania, especially Kigoma. Nice to meet the Gombe team and the rest of your trip to Kenya and wherever it may take you. You said Asia also, isn't it?
Yeah, after Christmas next year, Asia, hopefully. Let's see. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for watching to the very end. I sincerely hope you enjoyed my chat with Father Paul and his insight and wisdom about relationships. Please like and subscribe to our channel and we will be sure to create more content like this. And please also remember to be kind and loving to all our fellow Earthlings, big and small. See you soon. Bye bye.